friends! It's finally spring and I cannot wait for the cherry blossoms or sakura in Japanese. So in today's video, we are going to draw the cherry blossoms using the Procreate app. But you can also use any drawing application that is available to you. This video is the third one in the Spring Blossom series and you don't need to watch the other videos, but if you are interested, the playlist is in the description box below. I will be utilizing the same canvas as I have used in the previous two digital artwork tutorials. I just hid the other layers. But if you are interested on the size of my canvas, the information is on the screen right now. Or if you want to use other sizes, that is fine too. Just make sure that you will be able to use at least 20 layers. So let's start. If you are like me who is using the same canvas as what we have used in the previous tutorials, let's create a new layer in the layer menu by tapping the plus icon. But if you created a new canvas, you don't need to create a new layer because you already have a fresh layer in there. And with any artwork, let's begin with a sketch. So you can use any brush and color that you want, but for me, I will be using the technical pen as my brush. So let's draw a twig. So to draw one, just draw a very imperfect line first, then draw another where one end meets the other line's end. Let's also add a tiny twig where a bud will be located. To sketch the bud, just draw an egg-shaped shape. On the tip of our main twig, draw some tiny leaves if you want. On this side, I am sketching a cherry blossom flower. When sketching the flower, make some shaky movements to make sure that the petals does not look perfect because nature rarely does. So to reposition the flower to the main twig, let's use the selection tool, which is the S icon, and using the freehand option, let's unclose the flower, then tap the arrow icon so we can reposition the element. We already made a front view flower, so let's also sketch one that is in the side view. You can do it like this, and I have also added the stamen, and if you want to reposition the element again, just repeat what we did a while ago. Select the element using the selection tool in the freehand option, and then tap the arrow icon to move the element. You can also resize and rotate the element if you want. I also added another bud here and some leaves. And that's basically our sketch, so let's lower its opacity and I am adjusting mine to 40%. Then let's create a new layer. On this layer, we are going to draw the main twig. I am using a dark brown for the color and for the brush, I'm still using the technical pen. So draw that twig and make sure to close the shape, then drag the color inside the shape to fill it in. Let's create a new layer again. And if you want to reposition your layers, just tap, hold, then drag the layer to your preferred location. In this layer, I am going to draw one of the petals of our biggest cherry blossom. Let's create a new layer again, and this layer should be behind the first layer that we have drawn. I am drawing two petals here. Make those shaky lines so that your cherry blossoms look more nature-like. Then a new layer again on top of the current layer. Here we are going to draw another petal again. And lastly, another new layer, then draw the petal. When drawing the petals, make sure that your shapes are close so that we can easily fill them in with color. So let's fill all the petals in one by one with color and make sure that you are filling in the petals on the current layer. You can change your current layer by tapping the desired layer on the layer menu. Now that all the petals have been filled with color, I can see that this one petal looks a little weird. I want it to be closer to the other petals, so let's select its layer to be the current layer. Then tap the selection button. Since I drew two petals in this layer, I am going to select the freehand option. And then select the element, which is this petal. Then tap the arrow icon to reposition the selected element. Let's also create a new layer on top of the layer containing the main twig. For layer management, let's group all the layers containing the petals of the main flower. If you want to rename the group, just tap the group thumbnail, then select rename. I am naming mine to main flower. So on the new layer that we have created a while ago, let's draw the first petal of this cherry blossom, then fill that in with color. Then let's add a new layer behind this layer for our next petal. Then draw the petal, then fill it in again with color. Let's do that again, a new layer. Then on this layer, I am drawing two petals but they are in the opposite sides of the flower. Then fill that in with color again. Let's repeat that again for the last petal which is at the back. When you are done, let's group these layers together, and I am naming this group as the other flower. Let's not also forget the buds, so let's add a new layer on top of the other flower group, then draw the two egg-shaped buds. Now I am going to turn off this layer by tapping the checkbox on the layer. I am also renaming this layer to buds. As you can see, we can't really differentiate where the petals ends and starts, so to create depth, let's add shadows to all the elements. We are going to use the alpha lock, and to turn that on the layer menu, slide the layer with 2 fingers like this. Also, I am changing the color to a darker shade compared to the petal's base color. I am also changing the brush to the soft brush under airbrush. I'm starting with the petal from the back of the cherry blossom and work my way to the frontmost petal. For the size and opacity of the brush, I usually just try different size and opacity, but I am almost always using a smaller size, and for the opacity, I don't usually use 100% opacity. For the shadows, I add them to the area near the borders of the petal on top of the current layer to show that the petal on the current layer is farther. I'm also going back to each of the layers to add the highlights. For the highlight color, I just used a lighter shade compared to our base color, and it is almost white. I usually add my highlights to the tip of the petals. Let's also do that to the main flower. Let's turn on the alpha lock on the layer by swiping the layers to the right with 2 fingers. And as you can see, I'm adding the highlights to the tip of the flower. Also, since the flower is in the front view, we will be able to kind of see the folds or the unevenness of the petals, and to portray that on this piece, I am drawing lines from the center of the flower. Much like what we did from the previous tutorials, but instead of using technical pen to add the line details, we are using the soft brush instead. And of course, the shadows, we are going to use the same process as what we did with the highlights. I'm drawing lines from the center of the flower, and I am also adding lines which starts from the tip of the petal. So basically, these lines are following the overall shape of the petal. If you have watched and followed along on the previous tutorials, the line drawings on those tutorials was kind of a practice, and it was building your intuition on where to add the lines. The difference from those videos is that here we are using airbrush instead of technical pen. Now that the highlights and shadows in the main flower has been laid out, let's duplicate the group and hide the other duplicate. On this group, tap on its thumbnail, then select Flatten. Then using the smudge tool in soft brush, let's smudge the center of the flower. Once you are satisfied with that, let's create a new layer where we are going to draw the filaments of the flower. I'm going to use this color, and for the brush, I'm going to use the technical pen under inking. I'm flicking the pen a little bit while drawing these lines to add more visible taper, and I also drew them starting from a single point in the center of the flower. Let's again add a new layer for the anthers, and I'm going to use a shade of yellow for that. For the ones on the outer part of the bundle of filaments, I drew the anthers on the side view, and to show that there are also anthers that are facing the viewer, I added this little bundle where the lines are coming out in all directions. I also added the anthers on the other flower that we have. But this time, since the flower is already facing away from us, I only drew a side-facing anthers. And of course, don't forget to add filaments on this flower also. But for the filaments, I created a new layer at the back of the first petal of the other flower. Now to the buds. Let's turn on the alpha lock to add shadows and highlights. I also decided to add subtle details on the main twig, and I'm not sure if it shows on the video, but it's definitely in there. I used a slightly lighter shade of the base color of the twig, then turned on the alpha lock and then added the details. Right now, the buds are still floating and we need to connect those to the main twig, so let's create a new layer behind the main twig for those. I also changed back the brush to the technical pen again. When drawing these tiny twigs, I again did the shaky way of drawing to achieve the imperfection look, which captures the reality of nature, I think. Then fill them in with color. I also added another twig as well. Now let's create the leaves, and to do that, let's create a new layer on top of the layer where we drew our main twig. Then choose a shade of green that you want, then start drawing the leaves and fill them in with color. I wanted to have more tiny twigs here, so I went back to the twigs layer, and I also hid the other layers by unchecking the checkbox on the layer menu. So here I am drawing the twig. Also gonna check if the placement is alright with respect to the main flower, and I think that is okay. I'm going back to the leaves layer and I'm gonna turn on the alpha lock on the layer. I'm adding some line details using a darker shade of green. And that is done. Let's select all the layers and groups in this cherry blossom artwork except the sketch layer and group them. Then slide the group to the left, then tap Duplicate. Then let's tap the thumbnail of one of the duplicates and select Flatten. Then again, slide to the left to duplicate the flattened image. Then on the Color menu, select the color white by double tapping in the area near the color white. Then on the lower duplicate, tap the thumbnail and select the Fill Layer option. On this layer, let's turn off the alpha lock by swiping the layer to the right. Tap on the wand icon and select Bloom. I adjusted mine to around 44%. Then on the layer menu, I duplicated this layer and I don't like the gaps between the elements, so using the soft brush and the color white, I filled those gaps in. On the layer menu again, I duplicated this layer, then merged them all together. You can duplicate this layer until you are satisfied with your outline. So happy spring everyone, and don't forget to subscribe and hit the like button if you enjoyed this video. If you want more, you can check out these other videos. Till next time, bye!